All right, everybody, TJ here. We're going to get started with our Q&A and our presentation for tonight. We'll be getting around to some Q&A a little bit later, though, not till later in the web meeting because we have a special subject we're going to do a presentation on first, so don't bother raising your hands yet. And we will tell who to raise your hands and at what point for certain things. So if you have your hand raised, you can lower those now. Anyway, I like to start off with every meeting with a brief prayer just to give us a little bit of guidance and protection. So in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, Lord, thank you for giving us this blessing of being able to come together, to work together, to grow together, and to learn together. We know that we perish for our lack of knowledge. A lot of people in this world live with a lot of anger because they really misunderstand what's actually going on and how to control their lawful lives. So it's our hope here that we can help them do that better. So I ask your blessing of what we're doing tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, I'm just going to switch to a different screen mode here. Just remind you, this call does not give legal advice. It is not intended to be legal advice. Anything you hear that sounds like legal advice, you should go do your own homework and consult with legal counsel. I am not a lawyer, and I don't grant legal advice. We do teach various legal subjects. We're a training program, and we do get into those certain topics that relate to subject matter that we wish to discuss. So, that be that. Hang on, I'm just sticking to a different screen view. Apologize, they gave me a little bit of a change in screen setup tonight, so got to figure out where things are. Okay. Sorry, folks. I have a little console I have to navigate, and it dropped off my screen, so I gotta figure out where we're at. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to have a special topic on trusts. Now, if you're not interested in the topic of trusts, I'm going to show you why every single person who is essentially trying to do anything in the world of legality or commerce needs to. I've been around this world of commerce and legal issues for a long time. In fact, I started back in the 1990s doing real estate, and we used to do everything in trusts in real estate, and it was a great advantage to do that. And that's where I learned a lot about how to do that. So we're going to cover that basic topic tonight. Just a reminder, if you're new here, you're a free member or a premium member. I did invite both groups to be on tonight. Be sure you get to know our menus on the screen where you find things. A lot of times we get questions where it apparently looks like people aren't actually clicking and going down the screen and looking what's available to look into. One topic we're going to talk about here you'll find under status package coaching. You'll want to look at that link later on when we get to it, but that's where you find it if you don't find it now. And our various members areas, this is where the premium member page is. If you're not a premium member, you can't see this. If you're not a status coaching package member, you can't see that link. If you're not an equity class member, you can't see that link. It only shows up if you're fully enrolled in one of those particular coaching programs, okay? Our basic premium membership is the $29 a month one that we have. If you need support, go to the support page, follow the directions. You'll get a lot better result if you don't guess. That way you can ask the right questions, the right people, and so forth, okay? So, I think what I'm going to just go right into is get to the presentation, then we'll be able to do some Q&A. This, of course, will be recorded for it's actually going to be shown out into the general public because we think it's such a big, important topic. People have got to know this. And I'm going to show you how, well, I'll show you in a minute. Let me just go to full screen. Okay, buddy, thanks for sitting on our presentation on Bulletproof Trusts, an introduction. And we really think that this is the key for maximum privacy, asset protection, and tax savings. This is not legal advice. Keep that in mind. We're not tax advisors. We're not giving you tax advice. But we are showing you strategies that you can research, and you'll find out for yourself what we're telling you tonight. If you do participate in the full training on this program, that everything checks out. We're going to try to teach you tonight not so much how to get out of the system, but to how to get out of the system what you want out of it. That's a whole different way to look at things. So many people today are stuck in this mode of trying to get out of the system. Oh, I'm just going to tell them I'm a living man and they're going to pay attention to me and they're going to do what I want. I can tell you that 9 times out of 10, that approach doesn't work for a simple reason. They don't have to hear it. If they're in the public, they have to follow the public statutory system. And that's who you're talking to 99% of the time. You're talking to the cops, the courts, the tax agencies, whoever. Okay? And I can tell you, through a lot of trial and error, listening to members over the years, what works and what doesn't work. And yet the good news is, what we're teaching these days is actually simpler than ever. Because you don't have to become an expert. You don't have to become, you don't have to try to get out of the system, go live in a cave and kill water buffalo for dinner. That's what a lot of people are trying to do, and it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know about you, but I like my car. I like going to the store. I like taking my kids to school. I like driving around and not being hassled. I want to be left alone. So there's different ways to approach these issues. Now, some people are very good and adept at not even having bank accounts and not having a driver's license and not having anything. To me, that's a choice one has to make based upon information and their understanding how to get by in that situation. But what's very important to me is to understand is I have the supreme right to contract. The problem is nobody's learning how to contract. You're in a world of contracts, whether you like it or not. And it's not an evil system. It's not a demonic system. I mean, there are certainly some bad players, and there are a lot of demonic people. Okay, of course there are. But my point is there's a system that's here. It was fully disclosed to you. And if you learn how to use it, you can benefit. You can find out why Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump and all these guys can build these huge estates and pay very little in taxes and be protected against lawsuits. That, to me, is a good place to be. And they don't have to go hide. Go, hide their gold in a hole somewhere and hope that nobody shows up and takes it from them. You don't have to live like that. Okay? You are that supreme being that they talk about in the Constitution. We are the people. But it's critical to understand the difference between just saying, well, I'm just that, and now I'm out of all my obligations. No, you're not. From the day you were born, you've been involved in a contractual situation. You've been involved in managing an estate. Yet you were never taught how to do it, or how to avoid bringing liability upon yourself by mismanaging your business. So this tonight is really as much as a business presentation as it is a freedom presentation, because to me, people that are in business who determine their own destiny are the freest people. But you've got to also be able to keep it and manage it. And do it in a way where you'll get recognized as somebody who's actually sounding competent and realistic about how the world works. I might kind of think of this somewhat as the Sovereign Citizen Savior program, because a lot of people want to just go around and attack the system and attack the system. The reality is the system is actually fairly perfect the way it is. The question is how do you interact with it? And once you gain that understanding, it's just like the Bible says, we perish for our lack of knowledge. That's it. That's why we perish. That's why we suffer. Lack of knowledge about how to do our business. I think the Bible is one of the most perfect law guides and business guides there is, if you just pay attention to what it's saying. Learn what acceptance means. Acceptance isn't a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's what gives you your Savior, in a sense. Both the spiritual nature as well as the business nature. That's why we have a whole equity course just on that one process. But tonight, we're going to talk about why you need to have a trust. And not just any trust. There are 1,000 really bad trust systems out there. I can tell you I've seen them all. And I can tell you why they fail. In fact, we're going to cover that tonight a little bit. They failed because they don't understand the difference between public and private. If you have an attorney set up your trust, it is a public trust, and it provides very little protection, in my opinion. It doesn't give you the protections that what we're going to talk about will give you. If you want to have your status changed, what we're doing is we're actually saying, look, there's some things you can do with your status, your passport, your driver's license, and your Social Security and all that, and that's part of our status coaching program. This, what I'm showing you here, is information that if you have that program, you can also go to that same page and get this other new course that's available on how to do a trust for a fraction of what most places will charge you to do the trust, and you can do it yourself. It's fairly simple once you learn how to do this. So what I'm showing here tonight is kind of a new way to get your status. As a matter of fact, it's a recognized way of having a private status. Everybody else is running around trying to do things where I'm saying, well, I'm not going to be part of the system. I'm not going to do what they say. I'm not going to do. Guess what? They have a private system that you have available to you. You just don't know how to use it. Then you don't have to fight the system anymore. So the idea, the purpose of this program basically is to eliminate attorney, accountant, and executor fees, transfer assets into a trust, keep them in a private safe and absolute confidential way. Isn't that what you want? To be safe, private, and left alone? Well, if you don't transfer it properly, you just don't put it in there, you have to do an exchange. It's a simple piece of paperwork. Then you can actually protect assets. Now, this isn't as effective if you already got the fire started, but if you got, going forward, you want to build your future and have a protection, this is the way to do it. The only way to be a true sovereign is to manage your affairs as a sovereign entity does. Do as the king does. Do it his way. He doesn't say, I refuse to be part of the system. He says, no, there's a system here. There's a structure. They use trusts. He holds everything inside these trusts. It sounds like a big deal, a big word, but it's really nothing more than a third party holding property. That's all a trust is. And it doesn't work if you already got, like if you're in the middle of a divorce and you're trying to move your assets out, the court will stop you and they'll pull it all back. This only works, it doesn't work to stop a ship that's already sunk. Nothing does. But the reality is this is how to prepare for anything going forward. This is not about doing UCC1s or saying I'm a man and I'm a living man and living soul and all that stuff, because those things aren't recognized in the public. That's why they ignore you and they go on and do something else, because they literally can't deal with that. Okay? They need you to contract with them a certain way. And they'll make your life miserable if you don't. Unless you can walk in there and say, hey, I don't own that. That is not me. Then they have to, the burden of proof is on them, and that's what this does. It helps put you in that position of actually having a standing of an entity that they have to recognize, and they realize also they have no jurisdiction over. You just don't say you don't have jurisdiction over me because you probably did something to get yourself in there. You got a license, you ran a red light, you filed a tax return. You did something that got you in there. You have to accept that responsibility. But I'm talking about simple things that will get recognized, that they look at and go, oops, Article 1, Section 10, that's your dividing line. You want them to recognize it and say, we have no business dealing with this. That's what you want them to say. So it's the recognized private system that they know exists. And it's written in, I'll show you here in a minute, there's plenty of case law in this, okay? Your assets are protected because there's nothing on the public record. What's on the public record is seizable by the public attorneys, the public courts, and so on. If it's not in the public, it's on a private ledger, it belongs to a private entity that you are have a proper relationship to. It just can't be you doing everything. If you're doing that, it's not going to work. You have to set it up correctly. Then you've got a protection. They have to walk away from it. They cannot interfere with contracts. That's Article 1, Section 10. So it preserves assets for future generations. It provides for relatives, childs. You can set up special things for the children, that kind of thing. So it's a great estate planning tool where it's basically already in their name, just waiting for them. You don't have to go through probate. You can own and operate any business in the name of the trust without involvement in a personal capacity. This is where everybody gets in trouble, because you're going around saying, for example, they created one trust for you. It's called your all caps name. It's registered with the Secretary of State on the birth certificate. And all that birth certificate is a recognition. It's like a title to the car. It recognizes that it exists. That's all it is. People say, well, it's money, I'm going to go cash it in. I don't know about all that. I don't care about all that. All I know is that there is an estate there, and I can claim a certain relationship to that estate. That's important to understand. But we're not talking about that trust. We're talking about a new trust you create to move all your assets and affairs into, so it's no longer under their trust, because that is their trust. You can't put a lien on it. You can't take it from them. You can't make claims against it because it's not yours. They created an estate. They are the trustees. And when you interfere with a trustee's job, you're actually breaking the law. Did you know that? But you're taking a benefit by the use of that name in the commercial system. If you understand what it is you're dealing with, it's not that hard to deal with. It isn't me. It's your estate. But you have a fiduciary duty as trustees to take care of that. I have my own trust over here. That's what we're talking about now. How to get all your affairs inside that other trust where they can't touch it. If you don't create it, you are not the sovereign. Stop saying, I'm a sovereign. God created you. They create their entities, the state does, and you don't own their entity. They do. And if you claim it's you, you take liability for it. When you say, that's my name, I'm here, I understand, you tied the knot and making a claim against their estate. You can't do that. You can't go to some of your cousin's estate or a guy across the street and say, hey, you got a trust, I'm going to come in here and take the money. I'm going to interfere with it. You can't do that. That's what we're in trouble doing. We're messing with the public trust as opposed to creating our own and trying to operate as much outside of that trust as possible. That's what you can do when you set up your own trust. You got to move everything from one place to the other. Don't give them much to work with. So you can avoid probate, inheritance taxes. If you have a trustee, that trustee is bound by a contract of confidentiality. You call into court. He can't testify about what's in that trust unless he broke the law, like a really serious law. They really can't force him to say anything, what's in the trust. It's not their business. It's a private contract protected under the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. That's it. People say all the time, IRS taxes are unconstitutional. This agency is unconstitutional. That agency is unconstitutional. No, they're not, because you can contract with them. Article 1, Section 10 says you can get into contracts, and the contracts are superior. Stop saying stuff's unconstitutional all the time. If you got yourself into a contractual relationship, you're in it. You got to perform. IRS calls it voluntary compliance. Once you volunteer, you must comply. And you're all in it at some point. Because you're saying, oh, it just doesn't apply to me. That's not true. If you said the name is you, now you made it apply to you. Because it's just that fiction name. But if you operate instead of a private trust, now it's a whole other ballgame. So this also can dramatically reduce income tax liability when redeeming what's called for lawful money. To reduce your tax, basically it's called create what's called a tax non-obligation. It's not an evasion, it's not an avoidance, it's a non-obligation. Certain types of revenues are not tax obligated. Again, don't take my word for it. You'll get sources on this. And then we say file and pay taxes if they're due. Wow. A lot of people say don't file anything. A lot of people say file and put 0 on there. A lot of people say file and claim a foreign exemption or things like that. I can tell you all those things can work if you're lucky. Do you want to count on luck? Or instead, if the all caps version of you has a tax return, he does have a tax obligation because it belongs to the state. It belongs to the United States government. Give it to him. Let him have it. But when you claim income from it, how much of it is actual taxable income, lawful money, or a non-obligation type money? You got to learn how those different things work, and you simply can take certain deductions. And you know what? When you do it that way, they tend to leave you alone. There's no guarantee of anything, but that to me is the lowest, the easiest way to reduce your obligations. And again, you'll learn this if you go into more detail in the training. You can avoid probate. That's very important because that can take up to a 30-year estate. And you can do whatever an individual man or woman can do because it's in the name of a certain type of trust. We call those express trusts. They're generally irrevocable. People say, I have an irrevocable trust. I have that. I doubt it. I doubt you have one. You may think you do, but most of them are junk. Usually in about 5 minutes I can tell you whether it's junk or not. And then you have to learn the difference between because it's how you structure it, how you form it, how you write it, and how you operate it. Once you understand those three basic things, and it's not complicated once you learn the basics, you'll know whether you got a real trust or not. Most of them are junk because you probably put yourself down as the creator or the grantor. And I want to be the trustee. That means I get to write the checks and take care of everything. And then maybe my kids and are most of the beneficiaries. But the problem is you can't be the grantor and the trustee, and most people set them up that way. But at the same time, you kind of do want to be the trustee of that private trust, not the public trust, but your private trust. That's a different trust. But how do you do that and be the grantor? Well, there's a way to do it. And again, that gets into some much more deep training on this, but if you did it set up correctly, you'll get what you want out of it, okay? And you don't need to be wealthy to be thinking about this. In fact, you don't need a whole lot. I mean, for crying out loud, probably for about $1,000 you can have one of these things set up, and you set it up, you write it, and you manage it. It's not that expensive. But if you don't get the training to go with that, it's useless paper. People have trust, think, oh, I don't have to pay taxes. Well, who's I? What doesn't have to pay taxes? On what? If you can't answer those questions, you're in trouble. Because most trusts are, basically the IRS goes after a trust. The first time they say, when they hear there's a trust involved, they go right after it. They can usually pierce a hole in it. They look for three basic things. And those are the things that you have to learn how to do if you're doing this, okay? Sorry, I switch us out of the wrong mode here. So that's just a quick overview. So why and what is a trust and why do you need it? Listen, a trust is an arrangement by which title to property, real or personal, is owned by one person, the grantor. Let's imagine that's you for a minute, and then it's held by another person, the trustee. Maybe that's a friend. It has to be an arm's length person. Can't be your wife, your brother. It's got to have somebody that has a disinterest in the outcome. Or it can be you if you're not the grantor. There's a way to do that, even for your own assets. And then they're held for the benefit of a third person, which is called the beneficiary, who benefits from the trust. Okay, got it? So there's a grantor who creates it. He says, I want a trust. Trustee is the person who stands in the position of managing it, if you will. And it's held for the benefit of the third party, the beneficiary. Now, don't confuse this when we talk about public trust, because that's almost reversed, okay? This is just for your trust that you create so you can manage and be in control of your affairs. A valid trust requires the purpose of intent that is clearly expressed. That means clearly written. The trust indenture clearly states the jurisdiction of the trust. If it's private, then it's private. If it's a statutory public trust, then it's a statutory public trust. You don't want one of those if you're truly looking for the benefits we're talking about. And then funds or other property sufficiently identified in the indenture to enable to pass to the trustee. So it has to clearly explain how this works. The actual delivery of property by the grantor to the trustee with the intent that the title passes to the trustee. So it's got to be written procedurally. It's some basic paperwork initially. It's not that hard. It sounds like a lot of big words. If you basically can read, you can learn how to do one of these. You're just putting a third party in charge of assets. And you want to do that. The wealthy understand that's how they get wealth and how they stay wealthy. The poor are the people who say, it's mine, I gotta have it, it's mine. I just want to hold on to that name. I want to take that public name, take it for myself. And I want to keep all of it. And I don't want to pay my taxes. And those are the guys that are usually in trouble, frankly. I see it all the time. Greed is not the way to approach this. The kings always use trusts. And the king's families use trusts. Why? Because it works. It's how the system is actually designed to benefit. The IRS code is designed to protect properly structured trusts. It's actually really a trust manual. So there's a link here to getting more information on both our status program and this trust program, this asset protection program. So the history. Although in history of trusts, history of trusts can be found dating back as far as 200 BC. Trusts really came into form With the Norman conquest of England in 1066 was decreed, the king owned all the land. However, from time to time, he wanted to give control to others to manage those lands. So this kind of ownership was known as tenure. This is where the term tenant originated. By the way, when you own your property, you're only a tenant in common. You don't own your property. Anyway, a tenured resident could pass on his interest to an eldest son, and the king was entitled to an estate tax. So in other words, it's partly his, so he's entitled to tax. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. You ever heard that? Well, the king has a piece in all these properties. And by the way, in our system, it's called the county and you are co-joint owners, essentially equitable and legal title holders, split title holders of all property. That's why you pay property tax. That's how you took title. So you agreed to it. So if we read the Articles of Confederation, which of course came before the Constitution, we see that a name, situs, parties, and governing laws are all that is necessary to create a trust. It's just a written agreement that they're going to manage the affairs, right, of a third party. And the U.S. Constitution is an amendment to that original trust indenture, starting the words of the Constitution, showing that to be the case, we, the people, in order to create a more perfect union. So it's stating that the people are forming a union, a contract, which is a fancy way of amending or ratifying the previous trust indenture that was in place. So you see, it's an evolving trust. The Constitution wasn't the first thing that happened. All right, so Article 1, Section 10, again, you got to get really familiar with how that impacts everything. When you say something's not Constitution, you better say, wait a minute, am I in a contract somewhere? Either implied or expressed. Implied means you just did something and created the presumption of law. Or you answered to the name saying, I understand. You just created a contract. But the good news is private contract rules is the superior law, and that affects your taxes, licenses, and everything. So, the power of trust. Getting back to the private side. We the people are the true sovereigns. That's where it all starts, right? Does that mean you're a sovereign citizen and you can glow in the dark? You don't have to follow any rules? Of course not. But it is natural law. It's those sets of laws that are just naturally inherent. You know, thou shalt not kill and harm others, that sort of thing, okay? If you're one of those people. But then we started creating a state citizen. And then that was where the people basically pledged something to the state. And then the state granted certain powers to the citizens. So now they're granting powers back. This is how things evolved to where we're at. Then the United States was granted power by the states, right, to basically take care of certain things. The citizen of the United States, aka the 14th Amendment citizen, was granted power by the United States. So we started at the top and we ended at the bottom. We started as we the people. We started building an organization, and then we started taking a benefit. And then the United States really diminished us back to that status. When we freed the slaves, we actually created a new class of slaves. That's all we did. We celebrate this as some, great freeing moment, and it was important for the black people that there was a liberation. But at the same time, it was really a sleight of hand. So let's not be careful to celebrate too quick. So basically, U.S. citizens don't have rights. They've been taken away and replaced with liberty because we take all these benefits of being a citizen of the United States, all these tools and resources. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you know how to also take your affairs and put it over into your private trust. You can be in control. You're given that right. You just don't use it. So liberty is a temporary freedom with restrictions. So as a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, you're only free until someone says it's time to go back to port or jail. The trick is to live in a private contract that you create. Live under that contract. Use that contract. Be in control. That's what you're sovereign of. And all this system gives you that right. You're just not using it. So, where does a private express trust fit in to get out of the system? And first of all, I don't like that word. Never felt comfortable with it. I mean, like, oh yeah, take your numbers off your house and don't have a mailbox and don't have a checking account and don't interact with people, and if they talk to you, kind of look at them and grumble like, oh, who are you? You don't want to do like that. You want to live like that. You don't have to live like that. You just have to be a business person. You're in business. You always have been. That name is an estate that you have beneficiary interest in. The one for the state now we're talking about. Back to that one. Those are public trustees. You have a right to direct them to do things as opposed to fight them. Why would you fight them over your own stuff? But yet you get arrested and you think they're attacking you. They're just testing you to see if you understand your relationship. Back over to the private side, our private trusts, we have all kinds of power. See, a trust stands as a state citizen with all the powers bestowed on that title. And here's some case law for you, Brigham versus U.S. Lawfully may do what any other human may do. So you create this entity who works for you. It's like a business that works for you. Sui juris, aka acting independent from all others. Hardwick versus Wurzmer. Can sue and be sued in the name of the trust. Now, if you're just a trustee, you're not getting sued if the trust is getting sued. Like if I have a business, an LLC or a corporation, the corporation gets sued, not me, unless I personally did something to tort or harm another person, of course. All right? In order to maintain this private jurisdiction, Express Trust cannot receive benefits, privileges, franchises from any outside party or government. That's Hale versus Hinkle. Now, this is an important one. A lot of people say, well, if I take any benefit, I take a Social Security check, okay, the private trust doesn't work. That's a completely separate issue. That's yours. Public estate versus the private trust. The more you can control under the private trust, the more private and more separate from that system you can operate. You may still need some of those things. You may need your Medicare. Maybe you can't afford private health insurance. Things come up. Things are expensive. We did create a system to protect these private estates that the public created. They're your named estate, not really private, but it's each of these public estates, okay? Correction. At the same time, the more you operate outside the system, the safer, the more private, and the more assets you'll keep. It's that simple. And then once you're inside that private contract world using the trust, you can work on what's called claiming receipts of lawful money, which is the private side of money. Money has two sides to it. I don't have a graphic here to show this to you, but look at your left and right side of the bill. There's the private Federal Reserve on one side and the public treasury on the right. You have access to both, but when you deposit money, you don't specifically cite that you want the non-Federal Reserve money deposit to go into effect. Well, if you don't do that, it automatically becomes that, and guess what? Just like the kings who could tax their land, the king can tax the use of their currency. The Federal Reserve is a private king. And you're getting taxed on the use of that. And because you failed to properly claim it, you have a choice. You just don't take that choice, then you're stuck with it. So you're under contract. So therefore, you can fire out about your IRS all day long. You can say, I'm not a U.S. citizen, I live outside on the states and all this stuff. That's all true. Unless you got a contract, because contracts are superior, and they've been using their Federal Reserve notes, it's taxable. So you want to fix that problem, get rid of that, get that out of your head. But you can fix it even going back a little bit and going forward. Okay, there's a whole training on how to do that. We're not going to get into that tonight. It's possible to cover all these subjects. But I can tell you there's ways to deal with it. It won't fix all your past problems, but it might at least minimize it. So really you have to focus on the future when you're thinking about this. So basically using those Federal Reserve notes or money, we call it, is really public. It's really public income. The receipt of it is what's calculated as income. That's all income is. There's no income tax. It's just a way to calculate what the tax will be. And if you don't declare it otherwise, it becomes taxable receipt of income, no matter what your status is. Okay. Lawful money can be excluded if you properly redeem it, it's called. So we don't have to fight the tax laws. It's a losing proposition. Almost nobody ever goes to tax court and wins. Almost nobody ever goes to civil court with the IRS and wins, criminal court with them and wins, because they get you to do one thing. They get you to bring up Title 26. And as soon as you bring it up, they know they got you because you forgot to bring up Title 12, which is the real issue. And whoever taught you that, Title 12, you'll learn about that if you do get into this sort of training, okay? And that's at, like, again, urlaw.org/statusinfo. If you're getting a statutory trust, avoid this. First of all, if an attorney gets it for you, it's a statutory trust. They cannot form private trust. They don't even have the jurisdiction to do it. They'd have to take off their bar license to do it. Here you can get it from private parties who know how to do it all the time. Statutory trust is a trust created by operation of law, liable to statutes and victimless crimes. According to 1 UTC 401 methods of creating trust, a statutory trust may be created by transfer of property to another person, a declaration by power of property that the owner holds identifiable property as a trustee to grant or trust, exercise of a power of appointment in favor of the trustee. So that's basically statutory trust. But there's other things you can do to make it a private trust that rarely get done. But again, that's only if the grantor has the capacity to create the trust. The grantor, that's the person who's creating the trust, right? The grantor. The grants it the trust. The grantor indicates the intention to create the trust. The trust has an identifiable beneficiary, such as a charitable trust, a trust in care of an animal, trust for a non-charitable purpose, your kids, whatever. The trustee has duties to perform, and the same person cannot be the sole trustee and the sole beneficiary. See that all the time. As soon as they look at your trust, it's over. It's not a trust. So it has to pass what's called the control test. Almost none of them do, if you really want the private trust, and that is. So the guarantor and trustee cannot be the same person either. So how do you resolve this issue of who's the trustee, who's the grantor, and how do you still kind of maintain control? Well, that's the art of learning how to do a proper express trust. Once you know how to do it, it'll come to you like clockwork. It'll come to you in your sleep. It's simple. But you got to learn the tactics to how to use it. A little more of a detailed course than this. Jurisdictions where it counts, right? You've always heard like jurisdiction. You can just argue jurisdiction at any time. And that's kind of true. But people argue it the wrong way. They're arguing the wrong issue. But if you have an express trust, they fall under the realm of equity and common law contracts. Remember, contracts are superior, Article 1, Section 10. It should be noted that the express trust is created under common law. It is not a creature of the common law. It is distinguished from equity, but rather it is created under the common law of contracts. That's different, okay? Not dependent upon statute. The statutes recognize the right to do this, but the statutes don't get to regulate it. So that means the court can't regulate your trust unless you rip somebody off, you harm somebody. But outside that, they have no business even looking at it. They'll walk away. You could have all your assets in there, marry a new person, and they're not a beneficiary. They have no claim to it. This court can't take jurisdiction to even touch that. Okay? So equity supplements the common law. Now, you can operate out of their jurisdiction because Article 1, Section 10 will say they can't touch or look at that trust. Now, don't ever do this to hide assets criminally or anything illegal. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about legitimate ways to own and control assets. That's it. We're not saying it is a way to get out of taxes. In fact, we're saying file your taxes, pay your taxes. But if you know how to do it in a way that's intelligent, that follows the law that's actually available to you, you can have complete control over that. So Elliott versus Freeman, the court made it clear that express trust is not subject to legislative control. You think that's important that that's written in there? And then it went on to acknowledge that the right-wise stance of the United States Supreme Court is that the trust relationship comes under the realm of equity based upon the common law right of contract. And it is not subject to legislative restrictions, as are corporations and other organizations created by legislative authority. And that includes statutory trusts, state trusts, business trusts, those kind of things. Okay? It's under the common law contracts. That's the superior law. People go, I want to get to the common law. This is it. This is how you do it. You don't say, I want a common law court. No. You've got to have your affairs organized in a way so you can operate that way. You just don't turn it on and be incompetent. And the court will check you for competency. They do all the time. So here's how a bulletproof trust can be not bulletproof. Okay? You commit a common law crime: murder, robbery, manslaughter, rape, sodomy, larceny, arson, mayhem, burglary, assaults, battery, false imprisonment, perjury, intimidation of jurors, intimidation of judges. Don't do that. AKA the golden rule: do no harm to persons or property. Trust will not protect you from doing those kind of things. If you commingle personal funds and trust funds, this is also one of the first thing they do is get the books. The courts will get the books. if they can get to the trust. They suspect, and they're going to do a test to see if the trust is legit. And I can tell you probably 99 times out of 100, most of the stuff out there, they can just go right through instantly and take apart because you've commingled personal funds. You didn't take a proper salary, or the distribution wasn't done according to even the rules of the trust that you created. So, and if you have a tax obligation and you refuse to pay because you're starting to make patriot arguments, sovereign arguments, you know, instead of using proper lawful money approach, then you're going to file and pay, and you still need to file and pay your taxes. I learned this the hard way. I wouldn't do it again that way. But I would focus on my trust and lawful money. Those two things together can do a lot to help me gain the maximum allowable deductions that I can take. And I can sleep at night. Now, your straw man is a tax-obligated taxpayer. No matter how you try to argue it, you can say, I don't live in the District of Columbia and the states are not part of the, I mean, all that stuff, that's all true unless you get into a contract. Once you file a form or a document, you're starting to create obligations you've got to proceed under. And now Caesar gets his piece. Okay? Now we can deal with that, again, with maybe filing the return with the proper deduction, incorporating the lawful money concept, or if you get a bill, in our equity training, which is separate from this, we can talk you how to do an acceptance, and it's a very effective way to settle those accounts. You want to pay it, okay? We're not saying not to pay it, but what do you pay it with is a question. So we have some really solid remedies here. Just want to keep that in mind. So this is just a very much an overview, introduction. I'll answer a few questions, but the reality is there's a whole course on this that you'll have to go through and then ask your questions. So here's what we've done. We have a status and asset protection package. It's on yourlaw.org/status info. Now, we've had the status package that's there now. It's been there now. If you've already gotten the status package, as many people have on our website, that helps you deal with passports, driver's license status, Social Security status, and all that. Now, that still does kick in somewhat of a status, but it's also just as important how you operate. Okay, you want to help the world understand your relationship to that public trust name that's out there, that all capital letters straw man name. You want to be able to clearly distinguish it. And doing these documents gives you a tool to communicate with them of your status and relationship. Does it automatically make everything go away? No, it doesn't, but it helps. Okay. What's also more important, though, is that you also have your Bulletproof trust set up, moving your assets through there, managing your assets through there, filing tax returns the proper way, so that they look at it and go, oh, this is legit, and it's minimal. Okay, you want to reduce your taxes. Again, this isn't legal or tax advice. I'm just telling you a strategy that you can research and you can stand on once you do the research. And so this Bulletproof Asset Protection Package that can be combined with our status package, they're purchased separately. Keep that in mind, they're purchased separately, but if you get them both, you'll have the ultimate way to not only get the system to recognize your standing as to it relates to the old name, but also create a new trust under which you operate and control unknown assets, and to just basically tell everybody to leave you alone once it's in there. To me, that's the best combination. And the investment required on this combined package is less than $2,000. But how much is that worth, peace of mind for the rest of your life? You're doing it in a way that people will understand, will respect, and it'll help you start acting like an adult, not like a glow-in-the-dark, stomping my feet sovereign. Okay? In fact, now you're an intelligent person acting competently, managing the system. And these two education programs can help you start to do those things. So get over to the website, check that out, yourlaw.org/status info. If you're not a member of the website already, you're seeing this video, you need to at least have a free membership to even get into the website, so be sure you sign up for a free membership when you get to the main site. And if you're a premium member, you'll also have access to this page and be able to get this information. We have a premium membership, which is most people that are on this weekly, twice monthly web meeting our premium members. Sometimes we let the free members in, like we did this time, but we wanted to open this up to a broader group of people to see these two major remedies. If you do these two things, it takes all the experience I've had over the years and it puts it into these two areas. If you learn this, maybe it'd take you a few months, might take you a year, whatever it takes. You know, it took you a lifetime to learn a lot of lousy junk. And a lot more probably chasing sovereign theories, being a patriot. There's nothing wrong with being a patriot. But when you make it emotional and not logical, and you just simply say, I don't have to do things, that's probably not the way it's going to work out for you very well. Okay? I've talked to judges personally, and I can tell you, they say, look, if people would come here with some intelligence and they actually knew what they were trying to do, they would get anything they want from me. But they come in and act like a fool, wave a birth certificate in the air and think that they're going to walk away from a burglary or a drug dealing charge where they're selling stuff to kids. He says, I'm not going to let that go. This is the common sense way to talk to people. We got to bring you back to common sense. So updating your relationship with these tools that you use in the public, and then creating your private entity to move everything and all your operations, all your things into, and that can include a business and other things. You need to do that. It's what I'm doing, and it's what others are doing. And you know what? I don't have to live like I live in a cave. I can go walk down the street and buy groceries like anybody else, use a card. That card is just a tool. I have without prejudice written on it, so I limit my liability. I do those little things like that. You know, my daughter got a driver's license, but she signed without prejudice, and the lady snickered. My point is you can control your contract if you know a few things. And you can walk through life just below the radar, as opposed to trying to just disappear out of the system. The system owes you some benefits. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a taxpayer. The question is how much are you in control of that whole contract relationship? And that's where you gain your freedom. You gain your freedom with knowledge. We perish for a lack of knowledge. So that's all I have on this presentation. We'll go on to some Q&A here in a moment. Okay. Now, we're still going to do a little bit more here. I just wanted to kind of take that because I'm going to cut that out as a video that's going to go out on YouTube, and you can share that with your friends. I want to first, before we get into any questions, want to make sure we have anybody here who's had, with our current systems, any success stories. That's why I want to, if you're in the hand is raised right now, we have a 208 area code, a Steve, a 702 area code. I need you to make sure you're a success story of some kind first. That's who I'm going to call. So when I call you, I'm going to say, tell me your success story. If you don't have a success story, I'm going to hang up on you. So just be ready for that. We'll get back to you here in a moment. All right? I'll try to answer your questions. Now, if you ask me questions that are about this course, because it is a course, and with all the documents you need to do the private trusts, I'm going to probably refer you to the course, because it just, for the most part, it gets into much more detail than I can possibly cover here in this limited platform that we have. Okay, so area code 208. I'll go ahead and call on you first for a success story.
Yeah, you can go ahead and hit me up later.
Yeah, okay. Next one is Steve. Steve, do I have you?
Okay, yeah.
Here's your success story.
My success story is that I'm looking for trusts to have had what I already know, and I was wondering if you have an avenue of finding a good trustee.
Yeah.
That's the main question.
Well, there's two ways to find a good trustee. One is to find somebody you trust, not a close family member, or you be the trustee, but how do you be the grantor and the trustee? And this course teaches you a very cool strategy to do that, and it'll pass the legal test. Then, whoever your beneficiaries are, your kids or your a charitable organization or whatever, who you want to benefit from. That's the second issue. But anyway, that goes into great detail about how to do that. It's actually fairly simple. When you actually figure it out, you go, God, that was easy. But you know, I don't want to tell it to you here because I can't explain the whole background on it on this call. But it does teach you how to become ultimately the trustee and yet not be the grantor at the same time. That's a really slick trick, and it's legal. Okay.
Okay, amazing. Then your trust course teaches you how to be the grantor without, or the trustee without being the grantor,
Yep.
or vice versa.
You'll still need a second person temporarily to do that, but there's a way to do it.
Huh. Okay, thank you.
Yep. It'll show you. Okay. Next question is area code 762 from Blue Ridge, Georgia.
Greetings, how are you?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. So, here's my success story. So, they locked me up in jail for suspended license, and I went to court, and I walked in, but I had signed all my documents in my lowercase name, and I put all rights reserved, and also in full spirit. So when I got to court, the judge told me, he was like, I don't want to hear nothing about being sovereign, or I don't want to hear the indigenousness, none of it. So I was like, okay. So I told him, I said, well, I'm the beneficiary and you're the trustee. So we need to solve this for the benefit of myself. So all I know was he told me that they were going to set up a court date and it would come in the mail. And when it came in the mail, it was a receipt. And it said, all fees and fines have been settled.
Perfect.
You can now call the DMV and do the reinstatement fee. So which I'm going to do them with I'm going to send them what do they call that? When you make, proof of debt. I'm going to send them and make them prove that I have a debt. And when they don't answer, then I'm going to haul them into court.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I have a theory about what first of all, you've got a great success. You did it very simple, very clean, very straightforward. You reminded them they are the public trust. Don't violate their trustee. One of the most important law you can break in this world, believe it or not, for these people, is trust law, antitrust.
Right.
You put him in his position. You reminded him that you're the beneficiary. They need to settle the debt, the charge. They charged you with something. They need to discharge the charge. It's all about positive, negative energy. It's about plus, minus accounting. That's all it is. You just mechanically told them to do it. They don't bring it up in court. Notice we tell people, don't expect them to acknowledge it. But boom, look what shows up in the mail. Hey, we took care of all that. Now, if you want a license, go do this.
Right.
So they gave you everything you wanted. I'd say, my opinion is, I don't fight the license. And I don't fight paying for a service. They got to pay for roads. They got to pay for bridges. They got to pay for employees to run this whole thing. I'm okay with that. I just reserve my rights on it when I sign the document, so that if I have to go to court again, I can stand on that I'm the beneficiary. You're just doing it again. But so it depends on which battles you want to fight. Well, so here's the saying I would have. This is how I would do it. I'd say, wait a minute. My rule of thumb is this: pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. You just got fed. If you want to not fight and battle any further, I'd go down and personally, I'd go, unless you just don't want a license. If you want the license, you're going to have to pay for it because it's a business. You're buying it from them. I can't walk out of Target and not pay for my milk.
I got you.
Okay? So think of everything as a commercial transaction. They're trustees. You got it. You did what's called subrogation. You kept them on their position. You didn't come off of that. You kind of opened the door by putting everything up there front that you gave him, and he kind of tried to throw you off, which is what it's their job to do. Their job to try to get more out of you. But they're not supposed to steal from the beneficiaries. They can't steal from the beneficiaries. The trustee cannot do that.
Right. What's funny was I walked up to the podium and I had forgot when you walk up to the podium, you basically have came back into their jurisdiction.
Not
So then
necessarily.
he's like,
Depends on how
well,
you appear.
okay, so here's what he told me. He's like, okay, he said, what do you plea? I said, well, I'm not here to make a plea. And he said, okay, here we go. He said, well, I'm just going to make one for you. I said, okay, what's my choices? He said, you can have it bound over to the state for a jury trial. He said, you can talk to the prosecuting attorney. He said, or you can plead guilty or no nolo or whatever that is. So I'm like, and then I thought about coming up to the podium and I said, all rights reserved. And he said, okay, well, you won't be talking to the prosecuting attorney. So that's how I know I basically gained my rights back. You don't want me to talk to her.
You can go to the people hide behind the gate and all that stuff. They won't hear you out there. You got to enter the port. Like I was in the Navy, I still had to cross the bar, cross the bridge, go through the gate to enter into a port, and then I had to do business with them. That's what we did. I didn't stay on my ship and go, hey, we want to come ashore, but we're not going to come ashore. That doesn't make sense. You got to say, we're coming ashore, request permission to come ashore, we shake hands, we salute, we sign a contract, and everybody comes ashore. Okay?
Right.
So it's just a business. It's just you're just going in there to do some business. They have called you in there. They send you a party invitation. You show up. You reserve your rights. You remind them that you're staying in the position, the capacity of a beneficiary, and they have a public duty to settle the matter. That's it. It's really, you didn't engage in the game. Entering a plea waives the jurisdiction. Not showing up, the microphone doesn't necessarily do that. It's what you do with the mic matters. Like you're just saying, all rights reserved, and that's all you said. What are they going to do? No, you can't.
Nothing but look at me.
So anyway,
and you know what?
But I would say if you want the license, go pay the man, but reserve your rights when you sign it too.
Gotcha. So here's another success story. I had a hospital send me a $4,000 bill. So I got on the phone and I was like, okay, so basically y'all coerced me into signing a loan. I'm like, I don't owe you anything. I said, how are you going to say I owe you something? I said, you're a bank. I said, I came there to get seen at the hospital, which is a free service. I said, not to be taking out a loan. So next thing I know, I get a letter in the mail, and it zeroed out the account. Now they named me the guarantor and gave me a guarantor number. This is at Piedmont Hospital, which is a big hospital in Georgia. Then Tenovia out of Tennessee also named me the guarantor and gave me a guarantor number. And then I had my business records filed in the Land of Deeds in Alabama, my trucking company, and they have me as the grantor.
Guarantor or grantor?
They have me as the grantor.
Grantor.
Yes.
But that's a different issue than the hospital.
Yes, the hospital has me as the guarantor.
Guarantor, yeah, that's not the same thing.
Right, it's not.
So, well, where did you ever sign as guarantor?
I didn't.
So it's like saying, that's like making you a co-signer for somebody else's loan, but you never co-signed.
Right.
There's a problem. See, you just break it down. Like, wait a minute, where do you have the evidence that I'm the guarantor? Where's the contract that says that? Where did I sign for that? I don't know how you signed.
So basically, I need to call them out on it.
Well, just prove it to me. It's always, I don't ever make claims. I say, well, gosh, if you got that, why don't you go ahead and show me that? Prove it to me. Puts the burden of proof on them. Never make claims. So, now, there's another way you can approach this too. It's just like you did the court, which is you can accept it and return it to them to settle and close. That's actually staying in the position of that beneficiary too.
Settling clause. Okay.
Because they're public trustees. They can settle that right into the public trust.
Okay.
Not money in there, it's just credit. They can just issue credit. There's no money.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go answer some more
very good stories. Very good
success stories.
Good stories.
And I still have a question about the trust, so you'll see my hand raised after you get through talking to me.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, we're still, you bet.
All
Okay.
right, I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for being on. Good story. I
Thank
like
you.
your tenacity. You did good.
And
All
a lot
right.
of people say, did you do a 1099? And I'm like, no, I just talked to them.
You just talked to them. Yeah, you don't we need to pull their forms in to get them to do their. They're already public trustees. You're already beneficiary. Why do you explain anything on a form? You probably create a
That's what
problem.
I'm like, and that's why a lot of them are running, they doing UCCs and all of that. And I'm
No.
like, I've only talked to people, and they just, okay, you don't owe nothing.
That's right. They see that's the power of just being you want to be treated like a man or woman, then act like one.
Yep, and that's
Yeah,
why I told them, I'm not entering all that paperwork to tell somebody who I am when they already know. Why would I do that? All I got to do is learn how to talk to them, and that's it.
There you go. Perfect. You got the right attitude.
I appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Ben Jose. For the Ben Jose.
Ben Hosea.
Hosea. Okay.
Yes, fifth prophet of the Old Testament. So
Yeah.
I have a partial success story. It's not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be 100% because I went in there and demanded my right of subrogation. I asked the judge to get the prosecutor to certify my right of subrogation. The place went silent.
Yep.
All of a sudden, all these prosecutors that had been very cocky up until this point, many continuances, were all looking at their phones. I don't know if you're old enough to remember what it used to look like when you were at the principal's office waiting for your spanking. Because, you know, I was like,
yeah, I was definitely in the age where they still did that.
Okay, me too. So they look like those kind of kids sitting there waiting for their spanking. She full-on tested me, kept asking me, "Is your name Ben Jose Rogers?" And I said, I wrote this down right off your website. I am not now acting as defendant, named in all caps, and I am the beneficiary and equitable title holder. I am not the trustee. I'm the beneficiary. We did that 3 or 4 times.
Yep, I'll do it multiple times.
Okay, then she
together 3 times, Dorothy.
Yes, and I even stood up and said, that's 3 times. And she goes, okay, we're going to continue this. And I want it in writing. At that point, my public defender, who I never had a contract with and never filled any paperwork out, they just gave me a public defender, said that he wanted to recuse himself from the case. The judge looked at him incredulously. Incredulity. If you looked it up in the dictionary, that was her face. And he basically is like, no, I don't want to represent this guy anymore. And she wouldn't let him. She wouldn't let him recuse.
Yeah. Yeah. That's because that's the only chance to keep you under the thumb.
Right. Because before this, we told him, I know it's you, the prosecutor, and the judge that has to sign to get bonds out of my trust, or to write those bonds out of my trust. And he was telling me how I was crazy, and this is, space alien. He literally used the term craziness, and that, subrogation, that's nonsense, and I'm not going to make an argument. And I said, you're not going to make the argument. You're going to stand silent, and I'm going to make the argument. And he didn't say a word when we went in there. Okay, so when I walked out of the courtroom, every single lawyer, and I had been talking to a couple of the other, I'm talking to defenders, the private attorneys, none of them would make eye contact with me. They're all just staring down at their phones or whatever, right?
They don't want to take liability. They're public trustees. You're making them liable.
There you have it. So I have court again supposedly in 2 days, but when I went down to the courthouse, now here's another fun story, to put my documents in writing. And I should send what I did, but I basically just asked them, took the letters right off of your Express the Trust files and wrote up my own document that basically said, certify my right of subrogation. And then I also asked them, hey, I want your statement of your Foreign Registration Act statement, your anti-bribery statement, and a couple other documents that I know they don't have, and any contract showing that I'm the trustee, etc., and your Form 990s and all that kind of stuff. A lady came from behind the clerk's counter, asked me if she could help me, took my document, and said she'd file it for me, right? My mistake was I didn't get this woman's name. But the last time this happened, I had another case a long time ago with my son when they were trying to get me to... it was a petition for compulsory education. the last time they did this to me, they wouldn't let me in the courtroom. So I'm pretty confident that 2 days from now, they're not going to let me in the courtroom. So dun dun dun. It's a cliffhanger. I'll let you know what happens in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, it's a new invitation is a reset. So they're just simply going to try it again. They're stuck. You know, typically, you know, by the way, what is the matter even about? Curious.
The matter is that I exercised my right to travel with my son, and they're trying to say that it was custodial interference, even though my son was living with me for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Jeez. What a book. That's a garbage. Okay. Yeah, okay. Just hopefully they'll just get to the part where they want to get rid of you.
The other part of this is...
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea, by the way, to before you go in there and say, you know, maybe I should talk to the prosecutor. You're still representing yourself, so to speak, and representing
Right.
yourself. You say, you know, is there anything you want to do to just make this go away? Just say
Right.
it.
I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to do, because they've
But
done
do
this.
it before, but don't do it in the court. Let him walk in and save face. You're doing him a favor.
Right. Okay. I'll do
Always help the prosecutor. I'm telling you, sometimes you help them, they actually help you. It's kind of funny.
that. Right. Because and here's the other part of that's wins. First, so it's custodial interference in the first degree, which is a Class C felony. Then they gave me a plea deal for second degree custodial interference. And then they gave me another plea deal for misdemeanor custodial interference.
They're trying to get rid of it.
Yes. So that's what I mean. It looks like this is working quite well.
Yeah, so I would
Valid.
just say, hey, look, we're down to this Class C. The reality is, the reason you're reducing this is, you know, this is a complete bogus charge.
Right.
I already have custody. There's no reason we shouldn't be talking here. You sure there's not something you want to do about this? It's good negotiation that time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then if
Just
they
literally
don't
try to grab the prosecutor before you go in there and say, can we talk for a minute?
Okay, I will do that, definitely.
Always settle it in the private before you bring it to the public. That's biblical.
Right,
And
right.
it works.
And also, like I said,
Let me know what happens.
the last time that it went this way, they wouldn't even let me in the courtroom, and the thing just disappeared.
Yeah, eventually they can't, because they cannot hear private matters in a public court. They know these rules. So you save face by going to the prosecutor and saying, look, you really need to make this go away, don't you think? You really want to go in there and do this again?
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah, think about that.
All right, I'll do that tomorrow, because we only have one more day before.
Yep. I mean, just to go in there, or if you have to grab before you go in, so excuse me, can we just chat for a moment? It's what attorneys do all the time.
All right.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
thanks.
You bet. Good luck. Let us know how that turns out.
All right.
On your way, I think. Daryl, I see a hand up from Daryl.
Yeah, so my success story is, you know, I found you guys after the fact that I got my case. But then after maybe 5 months into the case, it was a dealing charge. I was able to work with Lauren, and this was a journey because it was 2 years. So in the 2 years, it was like a bunch of runaround in the COVID.
Yeah.
And we had to go into all of this different continuance and different I had to go through different PDs and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's part of that process you were doing. The slam dunk.
Yeah, yeah. And then I finally got rid of the PD or whatever. Then the judge kept asking me, like, so are you gonna do this with an attorney or are you gonna do this with by yourself? So I'm like, no, I'm not doing it by myself. I want to find an attorney that's really gonna help me. So to make a long story short, the judge ended up passing away, and all the paperwork I ended up submitting, I ended up getting probation out the deal. Even though I just did this is my second time getting charged with a dealing when I have went to did some time before, but this time, after everything we'd been through, I ended up getting probation for the.
Well, that's actually, considering you had a prior, that's pretty darn good, actually.
Yeah. So that's my success story. Just to
Okay,
make
that's good. You had to drag it out. Hey, it's better because you're probably otherwise looking at some serious time. So that's good. That's a big difference.
Yeah, because I definitely, if I didn't find you guys, I definitely probably would have been incarcerated right about now.
Amen. Well, that's awesome. Now, please do me a favor. Do not put yourself in that situation again.
I'll totally changed my life all the way around within that time.
Yeah, because, we put ourselves in situations like that, and, I know life is what it is, but now you got a second chance.
Yeah. So
Good man.
I did have a question, maybe like later on, so I'm gonna raise my hand for the question as far as the status and
Okay.
and all that later.
All right, good. Paul, you're next. And I'll start taking questions at this point. I mean, we've had quite a few success stories tonight. Paul, you ready? Paul, you're up. Your mic is open. Okay, we'll get to the next one. Make sure you're ready when you do raise your hands that your mic is set up and working. Okay, we'll go to Sigmath Proton Mail.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Yay! Okay. I'm a real newbie here. So I just joined today and I paid the premium membership. So I haven't taken any of your training. I know enough to know that the guys that live next door that continually send us harassing phone calls, I know it's wrong and I want to send them a cease and desist demand. But because I'm a newbie, I want to make sure that it's a really good one, and I haven't gone through the training, and I've got a limit. You're supposed to send it right after something happens. So I'm wondering where I can get that kind of help.
Well, that sounds pretty straightforward. I mean, you just need to act upon it. You didn't really tell me what's happening, though.
Well, I got an email saying, Stephanie, when you are walking down the path, I can hear your phone calls. Can you please wait until you're not on the path before you, and I'm not talking loudly. Having
There was some petty stuff. Okay.
Yeah, and
so they wrote you a letter?
that one was an email, and it's constant. Oh, the other day we were going to open a bottle of wine, and I could hear you talking to your daughter-in-law. I mean, it's just people go by the house, and I'm hearing them sailing by.
No, wait a minute. So this is an email you're getting? That's what we're talking about, emails? Emails,
phone calls, and then when I walk past his partner goes, he sees me, and he goes, huh. He just makes all these comments.
Okay, well, listen, this isn't even a legal situation, so let's just get real about it. You need to just block their phone number and block their email.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I do that.
You can send them a letter and say, cease and desist calling and emailing me, or I'll contact the police about harassment. But just give them a just simple written notice that you can prove that you gave them written notice. There's nothing.
Okay, and I did construct one of those today, but it's from like legal, and I wanted to send them one that was awful.
Well, no, it's good enough. All systems work on the law of notice. So just give them notice, and then see what happens.
Okay, thank you so much.
And if you don't, then I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. But you say, I'd really rather you just ignore me, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even a legal situation at this point.
And lit,
But notice is important for everything.
Okay, then I'll send the one that I had constructed, which comes from legal, but that's okay until I've got
That's fine. Yeah, it's just a simple.
Perfect.
It's the fact you gave a notice that matters. It's not the perfection of the notice.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Look forward to learning from you guys.
Absolutely. Well, you got an earful tonight. Actually, these stories that people are telling tonight are real, and we're teaching tonight some pretty solid stuff.
Yeah, really. And by the way, I'm in Vancouver, West Vancouver, Canada. But
I'm in Vancouver, Washington. So.
Oh, okay.
The other Vancouver, we say.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Area code 407. You're up.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
It's Doug. It's Doug. Yeah, I have a number of, down in Florida, I've been to court quite a few times. I've actually been kind of fighting the system for, I don't know, since I was 19. But I grew up in a legal family and all that stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, I noticed, I was listening to most of this, and what I didn't hear, and I've done a number of times, is attack the contract when you get into court. I've been to court a number of times, and it's usually whether it's citation, I've done it with my son in the last month and a half or so, is basically ask the officer for the contract. Before we begin it, I asked the officer, do I have a contract with you? And they usually get a confused look.
Mm-hmm.
They go, "What are you talking about? Oh, contract? Do I have a contract with you?" And I usually get the answer no. And the last time I just got from the magistrate. I got I think this was a matter for the judge. She just interrupted and they kind of hung up on me, wouldn't let me continue. And it comes in the mail just dismissed. I've done it on toll violations also. It's attacking the contract.
It's a good initial approach for sure.
As opposed to the jurisdiction. Without the contract, they don't have the jurisdiction. And that's how I've always.
I warn people though, you may have a contract, so be careful what you ask for. do be careful.
I've always done the without prejudice.
Okay.
And sign my name by the put by before it, and I've always done that. So even if they do produce a contract, then putting as a beneficiary.
Like a driver's license, because then you can show that the driver's license didn't waive any rights by signing without prejudice if you did it that way.
It's right on there. It's right in the right on the license.
You can see back when I was doing it earlier, because they don't really give you new licenses each time, but you see in big numbers right across my bottom of my picture, it says UCC 1-308 without prejudice. And I got to walk in there and say, "Where's the contract?" Because I didn't waive any rights here. It was kind of funny. I took my daughter in just recently to get hers. She wrote that in very clear. Actually, the little writing pad things have gotten better. You can actually write on them a little better now. Where you have to put your name and sign. And she wrote it right above there in clear letters and signed below. And the lady kind of goes, snickered, And I was like, she just goes, okay, because we did it so matter-of-factly and confidently. She didn't raise any issues. Because the last 3 times I went down there, same thing. It was on mine, my wife's, and my son's. It's 4 times. We all did that, and they go, "Oh, well, you can't sign like that." And I always answer the same way. I said, "Really? Gosh, you're giving me legal advice?" Because my legal counsel said that's how I'm supposed to do it. And then they're like, "Okay," And one time she called the supervisor over, and he steps like, "What's the problem here?" And he goes, "He wants to sign this way, blah blah blah." And I says, "Oh, are you the person that's going to give me legal advice now?" He just let him go. So
it is.
Questions about
I use that all the time. Every time someone does.
Right, I'm not in their face. I'm just, gosh, really?
You get it all the time. You can't sign that way. You can't sign that way.
I have for everybody else listening, I have a document in if you're in the premium member, in the general folder. It says general downloads. There's downloads of different types. There's one in there about reserving your rights and how to do it. And it's a whole much more detailed explanation why, so you can understand what you're doing when you say it. But it does add up. You're showing that it adds up over time. You just keep doing it, and then something comes up, and you just pull it right out and say, "Well, where's the contract?"
Mm-hmm. And I'm doing that right now. Actually, I've been involved in a case with myself that started as a small claims. Been going on for 3 to 4 years, and they did some backroom deals, and they got a small judgment on me. And I could pay it, but I appealed it and put some other legal paperwork in. During the appeal, I get. The attorney on the other side, I'm just doing it by myself. Mm-hmm. She filed a motion a motion to compel my assets, and I rebutted the motion to compel with the statutory law, but it went into, and I did not fill it out. Then it went to a motion to contempt, and I said I'm not in contempt. I'm just exercising my Fourth and Fifth Amendment right, and the Sixth Amendment right to due process as an American. And he said, "Well, you don't have those rights." I got her on film. She said, "You don't have those rights." I said, "I didn't know this," but anyway, that's fine. So,
well,
after
this is where I get into what is a contract and what's not. If you have done something like you previously that brought you in there, where you did sign something. This is just for everybody in general.
it started as an employment contract.
Right. You don't have those rights. You signed a contract that waived them, right? But if you didn't do
No,
it.
I didn't. I wasn't that stupid. I didn't have a contract.
Well, people do it all the
I
time.
They denied me. I get in front of a tyrannical judge, and I got it on film. I filmed the thing, and because it was on a Zoom thing, and eventually, I mean, literally 2 months ago, she got the motion to contempt approved, and then they went for a writ of bodily attachment on a civil suit to collect a small. She got the writ. She wrote the writ without describing me or any of that stuff, and they sent seven sheriffs to my driveway, arrested me with no charges on that. Either I fill out it's either I fill out the form or I go to jail. So I went to jail. I sat there for 8 days, and the 8th day she says, "Well, you need to fill out that form, Miss Roy." I said, "I can't do anything in here. I'm not. I've already exercised my rights." She says, "Well, I'm going to let you out so you can." And ever since then, I haven't heard anything. It's been about 2 months, but I'm probably filing a federal suit for the arrest, because the arrest. There was no charges.
Well, maybe
there was literally no charges.
You might also look at just filing a claim against the bonds in that county. If they'll just have an insurance policy pay you.
I do want to go against the bond. That's what I'm researching. That's new to me. That's what I really want to go after is the bond.
Got to find out who it is, how do you file a claim, and just file a claim.
Yeah, on the bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
7 sheriffs at my driveway.
Yeah, no, it's just
For
that if you incarcerate and don't even charge you, then they owe you some money. My rent for my body is $50,000 a day. So where do I file my claim?
I put that fee schedule in way early in the case. It's been sitting there on the docket.
Add that to the bond when you do find out how to access those bonds. It's tricky. They'll avoid and shuck and jive, but go after. Listen, I got a bunch more callers coming in.
All right.
Thank you, sir. That was a great discussion.
Yeah, it's a long one, but I'm saying thank you.
No, it's good. It's good. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, Leonard is next. There we go.
Hi, good evening. I have a two-part question, and it's really more for peace of mind than anything else. I'm not an expert. I've been studying this stuff for a couple of years now, and I've had a friend who was grieving the loss of his father, and he didn't have, much money, and my brother was dealing with a divorce, also didn't have much money, and I was assisting them in studying and reading about this stuff and handling some of their own affairs. And I'm wondering if I could be considered or deemed to be pretending to be an attorney or some sort, and if that's the case.
Everybody has a right to listen to their next friend. You can't go in there and speak for them as an attorney. You're not being an attorney, but you certainly talk to them, and that's called being their next friend. Everybody has the right to choose counsel. It doesn't say choose attorney.
Got you. Now, if I did happen to send a correspondence in regard to one of the matters, is that a problem?
Well, you probably have to have them sign a power of attorney, but then they're going to try to step all over that. But I don't know what will happen.
Got it. Got it. Now, if this ended up escalating and being a bigger issue for the law firm, let's say they had some liability in the matter, and it was an outstanding
if they ever accuse you and say, hey, you're practicing law without a license, I said, okay, show me your state-issued license and I'll show you mine. They don't have one.
Got it. Got it. Now, do I need to at all be concerned about getting on airplanes or traveling public transportation? I typically don't, but
don't get on an airplane if it doesn't have gas. That's my recommendation.
Okay, but otherwise, it's not like someone can, because I've heard a couple of stories already, people mentioning that they've been absconded without charges and things like that, and I really don't.
Why do you think that? Why do you believe that would happen?
I don't know that it would. It really is just for peace of mind. I don't necessarily believe.
I wouldn't think about that too much, because unless you're clearly knowingly labeled as some sort of fugitive or felon, or something's happened where they've taken your passport, or that they're really on you about something.
Got you. Well, I printed. I'm flying tomorrow, and I was able to print my boarding pass, so I'm presuming I'm not on any.
Don't even bring that negative idea in your head. It just doesn't. It's irrelevant. You're not that important. Sorry.
Right on. Well.
To them.
That's a relief, man. I appreciate
Unless you're getting people out left and right and doing it all day long, and they're like, they know your name in court, they know you by your first name, and agents come around and know you by your first name, then maybe that might be a little weird, but I doubt they're noticing you.
Got you. Okay. Well,
I travel, and believe it or not, people know who I am.
All right. Well, that sounds good.
Because I'm not out trying to beat anybody. I'm trying to help people come to peace.
Right, and that's always been my point, and I've always suggested and advised, especially when it comes to tax questions or money questions.
Yeah.
Like, talk to a CPA. I'll go to the meeting so I can learn too, but I don't know that stuff.
Yeah.
I just read.
Learn what you can about lawful money. Go watch that information we posted earlier.
Got it.
You'll throw out all the tax theories.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
You bet. Javier, you're next. Javier. Let me see. Let me try you again. Javier.
Hello?
Yep, I hear you now.
Okay. So I got two quick ones. This one was back, when everyone was still wearing a mask at the beginning of the school year 21. My son wrestles. So during tournaments and going to the doctor, I would go in and they'd give me the whole spiel, you got to wear a mask, got to wear a mask. And I said, well, I'm medically exempt. And I'm at the wrestling tournament, and the guy's like, hand me a mask. I say, thank you. So I put it in my pocket, and he says, you have to put it on. I said, well, I'm medically exempt. And he says, if you don't put it on, I'm going to kick you out. So I walk in, I go sit down. The girl comes over. She's like, you have to put the mask on. I'm medically exempt. She says, he's going to kick you out. I said, that's fine.
I went through all that stuff, too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, listen, I just need everyone's name because I'm going to charge you personally because it's a violation of Title 42. USC 12182, it's American Disabilities Act. And the girl goes, she goes, I understand what you're saying. She's like, I'm in law school. So she stops. She goes over and tells the guy, because the guy was now dead set on coming over to me. And then she goes, must have told him something, and the guy stopped. That was it. And so the rest of the night, he actually stayed away from me. He wouldn't even come near me. And so, the next tournament I go to, and I walk in, and she sees me, and she's like, oh, trouble's here. But that was it. They wouldn't, push wearing a mask.
Okay.
Right? And so, that was it. And then the same thing, I would go to the doctor's office, And, you know, typically it was like, it's like a 20, 30-minute wait in there. So I go in and I sign the sign-in sheet, and the girl hands me a mask. I say, thank you. I put it in my pocket. I sit down. The thing was, I'd never argue with them about it. I would just say thank you. And so I sit down, and, you know, a couple of them are looking at me, and they call me up to the desk like, you know, what's your appointment for? So I tell them. She goes, okay. She hands me a mask also. I said, oh, I already have one. Thank you. She's like, well, you got to put it on. I said, oh, I can't. I'm medically exempt. And so she looks at me like, you know, I'm from outer space. And so I'm like, okay. So another one comes up and says, you have to put it on. I said, I can't. She's like, well, you know, we'll have to kick you out then. I said, well, that's fine. I mean, because, you know, I'm just going to need your name because I'm going to charge you personally. And I go through Title 42 USC 121A2. It's a violation of American Disabilities Act. She goes, wait a second. And like a minute later, the girl called me to go back in. I got to the front of the line with it every time now. Like I walk in with no mask at front of the line, no wait. So I'm like, that's my secret, right? So then the next one is my dad gets sick. He goes into a rehab, and his wife's got dementia. And they live in Florida. They have DCF. It's like family services just for old people. And so, you know, the lady calls me up, and, you know, they want to snatch her. So I live in New Jersey. I got to fly out there, stay with her. And so everything gets settled. But in the meantime, she's telling me, you know, give me this lowdown, like, you know, we're going to take her, it's like a, because she's got dementia, you know, threatening to, you know, take her out the house. So my dad winds up having to go back into rehab again. And now I did some stuff to protect her. She can't get out. Like there's, you know, keypads for everything to get out the front door and everything. But she's back now, and she sees like, okay, there's cameras up, there's keypads, they got somebody watching her. And so my dad goes back in on a Friday. Monday she calls me up. I'm back at the house in Florida. She's like, listen, you know, I want you to call me with updates with your dad, and, you know, I see you put some protection in for her, but I want to know every week, like, what's going on. I want you to update me. If something changes, call me, you know, but I want to update once a week.
Okay.
I said, okay. In the meantime, my dad's, like, in a rehab, and, like, they're just trying to keep him, right? So I got this social worker from the VA.
I'll give you a little short story. It's getting a little long because we have several callers to get on the next couple minutes.
Okay, so long story short was, you know, I'm telling her I had a problem with this social worker, and I said, listen, you know, are you state or federal for the VA? And she said, why? I said, because, you know, I'm going to copy your bond and oath of office. She's like, then she said to me, I don't think they have a bond. And I said, yeah. I said, all public employees do. You know, it's to protect us from you guys. And she goes, I don't have one. I said, I'm pretty sure you do. And she goes, I don't know. I said, I'm pretty sure. And I said, a lot of them start, you're financially liable, a lot of them start like $100,000. You know, once somebody puts a claim in, you got to vacate your position. You can't work at that. You more than likely lose your pension. All that stuff goes away. And she goes, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. So I get off the phone with her. And then 2 hours later, she calls me back and she says, you know what? You're doing a great job with all this. You know, I'm going to close this case out right now. She goes, as I'm looking at this, like, you're really on top of everything. You know, I'm closing this case out. I said, oh, okay, that's odd. So I said, you know, it's funny how it went from you need to call me every week, give me updates, to, you know what, you're fine. I'm closing it out. I don't want to be bothered with you anymore.
Mm-hmm. So standing up for your rights is always a positive thing. If you do it politely and correctly, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to be threatening.
Yeah. You know what? It was so like, you know, just like a passive conversation, and she was like,
yeah.
She was really in shock when I told her that, you know. And I'm sure just got off the phone and looked.
Yeah. There you go. Good story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. All right. We'll get to the next one here. 916 from Sacramento. Your question. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes. I hear you.
Hello, can you hear? Oh, yes, I just wanted to say thank you for definitely having the, including the people who don't have memberships, because I definitely appreciate it. I don't have the funding to join the membership, but as soon as I do, I will. But my question is, so with children involved, well, if people have children, should we also correct their political status, and would we add them in our trust or make their own?
I don't really get into. It's really hard to. I mean, yes, you technically could. I mean, that's a complicated question. Depends on what you know and what you want to do. So, I don't really think you need to. You need to clearly identify, though, your relationship to them and whatever affair might be going on. They are your property, not your children. You use the word children, you're using the commercial term.
Oh, okay.
That's actually a commercial term. That once you say that, you identify them as the state's property. Little things like that. It's how you operate that matters just as much as that. If you're doing status work, you have to start with yourself. It's kind of like putting the mask on the airplane. You got to put yours on first, make sure you understand what you're doing before you try to do anything with them. And then you have to come up with a plan. How do you want to do it for them? If that's what you want to do. How are they going to interact in commerce? If they don't have a trust, though, to go over here and operate in a private trust and know what they're doing, then they can't do that till they're 18 of legal age. So, it just depends on what you know, what you're trying to do. What is it you want to accomplish?
Just basically protect them from either being in the system or the.
Well, I can say this, it's really hard to keep them completely out of the system when they're kids, but people will say they can do it, but I haven't seen it that well done. It's what contracts you get them into that start the process. You enroll them, you register them into school, you're granting a title interest in them to the school. Now they have authority. When you're getting a benefit, health benefit or whatever, you can do all those things, but you heard the guy talk about earlier, says just know how to sign things without prejudice, reserving your rights, and know what that means when they try to say, hey, we want to come and do something with your kid. You can say, well, show me the contract, and then you can show them that you reserved your rights on the document that you think brought them in the door, and they have none. So it's how you operate, too, in relationship to their estate, the public estate side, that is. And so the better you have an understanding of this public estate and then how you can move it over into your private estate is critical. Take some study and time to learn all that. It's a deep subject.
But we can technically add them in our trust once everything is.
Sure, we can make it beneficiaries of your private trust. Then they have access to your assets.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they don't have access to the assets. The trustee can assist them. It's the trustee's job to do things for them.
Right, and we will have the direct control over them and not the other states or anything.
As it relates to your private trust, if you create one, yes. As it relates to the public estate, that's a whole different deal. They each have their own estate. You're just kind of the co-trustee with the state on that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, all right. Catherine, you're next.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I didn't know it was automatic. So, just listening to what you're saying about the kid, about what you did with your daughter's license, my daughter already did get her license, and we didn't do that. Is there a way, and I didn't sign without prejudice either, however many years ago. Is there a way to go back in and change that signature?
You ever lost one?
Driver's license?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be a way to approach it.
Okay.
It gets destroyed in the laundry, you need a new one. Some states might just issue one. You say, no, I want a new one issued. just new picture and everything.
Right, okay.
Then you'll have a chance to sign for it.
Okay, all right. So you can go in and change that, and the past ones are
Pretty sure you can. And once you sign it, that's your evidence of your. Every time you're doing an action, you're creating an intent. If you sign without doing that, you're intending to waive all your rights. When you sign it with the reservation rights, you're intending to do that. You're creating a trust contract with the state.
Okay.
That's the relationship.
Got it.
Doesn't mean they won't pull you over. Doesn't mean they won't hassle you. But when it comes down to it, you can start saying, well, wait a minute. Where's this contract? And here's what I got. See where it says, Your Honor, where it says UCC 1-308 or without prejudice? Usually the judge at that point is going to go, case dismissed. I've seen it happen several times because there's no contract. But you got to create the evidence.
You have to what?
Create the evidence.
Create the evidence, okay.
Show your intent.
Got it.
Notice. All these things matter.
Give notice in the sense, how do you give notice on that?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. Handing him to him and saying, well, take a look at my signature. That's giving him notice.
Oh, okay.
It's just common sense. Or you want to send him a letter saying, here's a copy of the driver's license, here's a letter, say just for the court's record, please take note how I autographed. I don't believe we have a contract. Correct me if I'm wrong. Take a look at this signature and see what happens. Probably get the case dropped.
Do you do it with car registration as well?
You could, because it's any kind of interaction with another party it can be done on. In particular, government organizations where you're signing government documents, that creates potential liability. You want to be very careful. Do you ever sign a tax form? You want to give up all your rights?
No, I don't generally want to, but I didn't know that that's what I was doing when I was signing it.
Well, again, ignorance is no excuse, as they say in the law.
Right.
But also, we can make mistakes and correct mistakes. You have the right to do that, too.
So on tax forms, you sign without prejudice as well?
I'm not telling you how I do it or what you should do. If you understand the principle of signing without prejudice, go read that article, and then you decide whether it makes sense for you.
Okay.
Because it gives you the background on that. And believe me, that's one of the things that gets you into most issues is those tax forms.
Which article are you talking about?
It's in the general folder. Let me see if I might be able to pull it up here really quick. I think I had it up open earlier. Nope. Let's see. It's called Free Yourself, Reserve Your Rights Often. If you go to the download folders on the premium member page, if you're a premium member, of course,
yeah.
Then go into the general folder, and you'll find this document there.
Okay.
It was recently changed. It'll even show as date changed. It'll show like as of today. And this has a great set of understanding. You should really read this a few times. You'll see just how powerful just doing this one thing is.
So the premium member page in the general folder.
Mm-hmm.
That's the tab premium member page?
Yeah.
Got it.
And then you go to that page, and then go down to the section where it says downloads.
Okay.
And then under there, you'll search for this free yourself, just free yourself. And you should be able to find this document. You can also sort by date. It'll be, because it was just recently updated. It has great information on what this means. So when you're dealing with anybody and you've signed this way, now you have only way to address it. You're not waiving your personam jurisdiction. You're not waiving your rights. You're not taking suretyship. You do all these. This is what you do when you just sign things. Just sign and get out of here.
Yeah.
You
Sign all the time.
You're creating all these contracts that you take on all the liability for.
Yep.
Stop doing that. Sign without prejudice. Deal with the public contracts you have, all the public interactions you have. Get a private trust to put all your assets into and manage everything, even your car. If you register your car to a private trust, and you typically, I know people that do this frequently, and when they get pulled over and they see it's a private trust, a private express trust, the cops just walk away.
Mm. No
because they
revenue.
don't have jurisdiction. Unless you bash into somebody else, you harm somebody. You know, if you're doing anything dangerous, that's different. They have jurisdiction. Of course they do. They have a duty. Public safety is a duty.
Right.
But this really will give you a good, I mean, print this out. This is something everybody should print out, sit by their coffee table, you know, and read it a few times, and every now and then reread it and understand how important it is, how you sign things, and how it protects you and how to use it. You heard earlier, just where's the contract? They pull up the contract and say, well, look, it's got this reservation of rights on it. No, I didn't accept full liability for that. There's no contract. Now you've expressed your intent.
Now, if with like a parking ticket, can you do the same thing?
You're not one of those people that are parking ticket violators, are you?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Not at all. I just get them every once in a while, and
Yeah. Well, you tell me, do you think it matters what it is?
Well, with a parking ticket, I guess where the contract is with the car registration.
Well, it's
right.
also there's a post. They post something there, so you agree to something.
Oh, okay.
But if you sign the ticket, I know people that don't even put their signature. They'll just write the words without prejudice, without even signing their name, and send it back to them. And then when they come back to you later, you say, "Hey, you said I owe this money on this contract here. I reserved my rights. That's all I did." And you know what? And people go, "Well, that's not my signature." Oh yeah, you want to prove it? I can prove it to you. That's a signature. Just writing the words without prejudice, nothing else. You want here? Let me look this up. This is fun. People forget this. Oops, I didn't mean to bring that picture up. Do you think that one U.S. code number 1, it might be important as it relates to all the rest of the U.S. codes?
Potentially, yeah.
It is the U.S. code that sets up all the rest of the codes.
Yeah.
So it gets in those words denoting number, gender, and so forth. Okay? And if you read this, go look up 1 U.S. Code 1. Everybody should be doing this by now. If you're following along on the web, or afterwards type in 1 U.S. Code 1 and read this. It'll drive you crazy. This is the rules of the game for the codes. In determining the meaning of an act of Congress, unless the context indicates otherwise. So, in determining an act of the meaning of Congress, unless the context indicates otherwise, here's the rules of the game. Words imported in the singular include and apply to several persons, parties, or things. Wait a minute. I thought singular was singular and plural is plural. Not according to these rules. This is why legalese is such a mind screw. Words importing the plural include the singular. Words importing the masculine gender include the feminine as well. I guess that's where the transgender rights come in, huh? Words used in the present tense include the future tense as well. What? I'm doing this now. That also means you're doing it in the future. This is how the judges can interpret things against you. Yeah. The word insane person shall include every idiot, insane person, non-compos mentis. Now, here I want to get down. This is the biggest one of all. Signature or subscription. Signature, right? You sign things, you subscribe to it, sworn and subscribed, includes a mark when the person making the same intended it as such. So, if I put an X, in the old days you see guys that can't write, they'd write X for their signature and they would accept that because that was his intent. That's legally correct. Well, what if you write something that also has a meaning, like without prejudice, or all rights reserved? And that's all you write. You can write the signature and that too, but if that's all that's there, did you just not alter the contract?
Well, the way I read it here, you wouldn't have, because it would be just considered a mark without a meaning.
But it is a mark, but it's also words, so it could mean something. You know, I mean, I'm saying it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean something. Okay. I'm simply pointing out it's a mark, so if you did sign, they can't say that's not your signature. You say, well, prove to me that it's not. 1 U.S. Code 1 says it is. And I'll pull it up for them. This is why you should have this ready. Pull up to you. So what it says right here, a mark. When the person making the same intended says, that's what I intended. See, you're going to make me break the law? Now, what it says might say something too. It's like written instructions. It's like a modification of the contract. Saying I'm not accepting liability.
Meaning.
Huh?
It doesn't say that a mark can't convey meaning.
Right, it can convey meaning, of course. This is just saying that they say you can't sign that way. You say, well, prove to me I can't because it says so I can. But now it's also instructions because you can write something anywhere on that document and change it. You're expressing your contract. That's what you're doing. You're expressing it. That means putting it in writing. Okay?
Got it.
So you see that has a double impact. It's a mark and it expresses a status, a position. When you sign without any qualification, you're accepting the public trustee liability. Do you really want to do that? Or should they do that?
Maybe it's a different time, but what is public trustee?
All public people working for the public run the public trust. They're supposed to settle your affairs for you, and you're merely the beneficiary.
Okay.
But they can't steal from you. If a trustee steals from the beneficiaries of a private trust, he goes to prison. Well, guess what? These public trustees do it all the time. But what they do is they get you to trick you into waiving your position as beneficiary by asking you for the name. And the name is the name of the trust, which means you assume the liability of the trust. Now you're liable. That's what they're doing with everybody. And they say, what's your name? Do you understand? Those are contracts.
Wow.
That's how
they really keep it down for that name, like right away. Anytime you call the DA's office, what's your name? And it's like such a command. It's like it's almost so.
That's because they want you to assume liability for what you're about to say, for the estate name. So yeah, that's a whole exercise all by itself. Let's let me get some more callers here. I got a bunch more. Thank you. Good question. Javier, you're up. Let's try you again. Quick questions now. We're running out of time. Got about 2 minutes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Javier.
Hi.
Quick question.
No, very quick, actually. I'm wondering if you guys do any strategies with family law cases. Because I have a dependency case in Miami, Florida.
We don't do a lot of family law because those are usually a lot of disputes just between people. It's not really the government coming after you for something.
Technically, it is in this case.
Okay. Well, maybe it is. Okay. So what's going on?
The mother used a silver bullet technique on me, and so they basically go ahead and they start making a bunch of...
I'm picking up a bunch of background noise as you start talking there.
Is this better?
Maybe. Keep talking.
So basically, she used a silver bullet technique where they throw a lot of allegations in order to get custody of the house and assistance from the government. So I'm fighting that independency case, but I beat the criminal case. They did a no pros, and now DCF is coming after me civilly for the same charges.
Okay. Did you get a marriage license?
No. Unwed.
Oh, you didn't have a marriage license. Well, then show me the contract. Stay on that one.
So
unless you want to try to defend it, then good luck. If you defend it, you're the defendant, and you can't use the trustee.
I'm the respondent.
Yeah.
That's what they have.
How you've responded thus far.
I haven't. I haven't lettered or done anything.
Yeah, maybe you just say show me the contract and I'll respond.
Okay. Well, trial's next month on the 30th.
Have you had any appearances and responded to any of this?
No. Yes, I've had appearances, but I haven't responded to anything.
Okay. Well, it kind of depends on the things you've done. That's gets complicated. That's why they tell me a lot of things like, yeah, they're really hairy, snaky. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on that obligated you somewhere. You know, but
I did have
the only other thing you can do is an acceptance on it. But are they asking for money?
No, they're not asking for money. They're asking me to take classes and to take the anger management classes and a few other stipulations.
Okay.
To earn my time back with the kids through their programs.
Well, you know what? When it comes to kids, you've got to decide what battles you're going to fight.
Well, the thing is, I don't even want to have that on my file. It's a lie to begin with, so why would I want to even accept any of it?
Well, tell them that.
I'll
work with you. I'll work with you, but I don't agree to that.
I have her perjured have her perjured in a 4-hour deposition where I came up with 34 pages.
Yeah, that's the problem in family law cases. There's always somebody accusing somebody of something, and then you got to prove or disprove. You can't what you can't prove or disprove. All I can say is that you can try to negotiate the best thing you can in those cases, and you know, it's.
I got the state's medical expert
no easy way out.
on deposition as well, and she confirmed that there's no harm done to the child, and for there to be child abuse.
Okay, then bring that information. Do some kind of look for. I don't know what kind of procedures you use. I know nothing about family law procedures. There might be a appeal procedure or something you can put in at least to say, hey, I'm willing to work with you, but you know, here's some evidence. Let's sit down and work this out. You got to just. It's biblical, and you got to work it out. Verse 15, 16, and 17.
Do I do that with the prosecutor or with the judge?
Prosecutor. Oh, the judge is never. Always the judge last. That's verse 17.
Okay.
Matthew 18, verse 15, 16, and 17. Go read them carefully. That's how you do it.
Okay.
It tells you go to your brother first. If your brother won't listen, then bring a witness. The witness won't listen, then you go to treat him as a tax collector, they say. That means go to court. Always. And when people jump to court first, they get themselves in trouble every time because they haven't followed that process.
No, I have an attorney. Should I tell him to do that, or because I don't think
yeah. If you got an you've got an attorney, well then you've already waived all your rights. So you know.
Well, I was planning to remove him before the trial.
Well, he apparently haven't. So.
Do I keep him? Not do I keep him.
Go ask the attorney to do it. Yeah. Tell him, hey, look, let's work this out. I don't want to be fighting this thing. I'm going to work. I want to see my kids, and I'll go to a class, whatever. Be a good little boy, whatever. But just let's get this done. The more you fight, the attorney's there to fight.
Yeah.
Or settle. What do you want to do? Listen, I got to get 4 more callers in 1 minute, so I got to go. But get your attorney working on it then. Just work it out. That's all family law things tend it being a settlement every time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Area code 762. Real quick question.
Okay. Here's what I am interested in, and this is what I got going on. Make it fast. So,
real fast.
Basically, I'm interested in the private trust, which is making it the basis of my ministry, and I wanted to know how to set it up in order to where I'd be able to make the IDs for people to carry that were part of the ministry.
Oh, okay. They want to know how to first get a trust that actually works. Then IDs. I don't know how you do IDs like that. I guess the trust could simply issue an ID. It was some kind of plastic card thing, you know. Find a printer that would make it.
Right. Because I know we're allowed to do our own IDs as long as we're not.
Yeah, I mean, they won't be recognized as government IDs, and I still carry a government ID, just without prejudice written on it, so I can get into a federal building or a state building or wherever I need to go. That's just my rights reserved on there.
Okay, so now, here's what I got going on. I have a case right now in front of an arbiter, the American Arbitration Association, where I'm suing Verizon Wireless because one of their third parties committed fraud, and I'm suing them for $750,000. So I got the proof where he went into my Verizon account, changed all the documents. He did all of that. He even paid $248 on my cell phone bill to keep me from killing it. So I went to a place, I forgot the name of them, but what they do is they do the administrative process and serve them. So then it's up to you. If you want them to settle it, they're going to settle it for $10,000 or less. But if you want more than that, then they send it to an arbitrator. Now, I've been going back and forth, but I haven't heard from any of them because I told the attorney for Verizon I need him to prove jurisdiction. So I ain't hear anything, or I need him to show me that he has license. So basically, the next thing I know, I have another case that's a tort claim for when I was in an accident and I ran head on into a mountain to keep from killing people because my boss didn't fix the brakes on the truck. So both of those are kind of like tied in together. And the arbitrator today, because I fired my attorney because he was working for the insurance company, the arbitrator sent me a letter talking about I used to work for Verizon in their legal department. So I'm just flabbergasted. You waited 5 months to tell me now?
Okay.
So they want me to move it to state court, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to move it to state court because that's going to put it in their jurisdiction. I'm trying to keep it in the private.
You can put it in whatever jurisdiction you can get a resolution in, you know. Well, you're the one suing, right?
Yes.
Well, then you're the plaintiff. Don't worry about it. You pick the jurisdiction. You want to invoke the jurisdiction to enforce it.
Well, I was kind of wanting to think
Nothing
about
wrong
taking
with
it to
using
the
the public
Supreme Court because,
jurisdiction, especially if you're the plaintiff, if you've got a good cause of action.
oh, I've got a good case. Matter of fact, I took to it.
Well,
What it
then
was is I went to
put
a
it together and
Verizon
go for
store.
it. What are you asking me?
Right, because where I messed up was I went to a Verizon store, and I was already having problems with T-Mobile, and T-Mobile was like, well...
Okay, listen, I'm sorry, I'm down to 2 callers. I got to get on in the next minute.
Okay.
But just, you know, if you're a plaintiff, you've got a good case, pursue it. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't claim jurisdiction against yourself.
Gotcha. I got you.
Use the jurisdiction if it's to your favor. There's nothing wrong with using the public court, especially if you're a plaintiff and you've got a cause of action. You just got to present it correctly and be ready for all the fighting.
Right, the GBI took the case from the county.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's interesting. But I appreciate you.
You bet. You bet. Good luck. Go after it.
Thank
But don't, people sometimes cut their nose off in spite of their face. They're suing and they say challenging jurisdictions. It doesn't make sense. You are suing. You got to use the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction has a purpose.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, don't confuse things. It's one thing is to be a defendant, another thing to be a plaintiff. All right, Rudy. Rudy, quick question. Rudy's typing. Rudy, quick question. Okay, Miss D, you're the last one up. Last call.
Hi, TJ. How are you doing?
Good.
I just have a quick question. I was in court for a suit that was being brought against me. The plaintiff did not show up. It seemed to me as if the judge was testifying and protecting the attorney. My question is, when I go back to court, I was in the process of getting ready to file the motion to discovery and the conditional acceptance with the motion to dismiss. When I go, the same way you just stated, like the trust and who's in play and what parties, it's my understanding that even in a court case, civil or not, there's still a contract that's taking place, correct?
Absolutely. If they're asking you for a name and stating a charge, whether it's criminal or civil, commercial matter.
Okay, and with that being said, when it's the all caps, I just want to make sure that it's still the same contract and the same principle that you explained throughout the call, that it's still a contract that I have to agree to, even with the court.
There's several contracts potentially. One is to let the court proceed. That's a contract. The other one is if you're going to make an argument. That's one way to contract. But you have to make an argument and take the trustee's beneficiary position. That's a bad thing to do. You can't do both.
Okay.
You got to pick your battle.
And that's what I thought. You had to pick which position you were in. You couldn't fight all positions. You couldn't even defend yourself.
You can't be the beneficiary and argue. Simply say, when you say I'm the beneficiary, I'm saying there's no argument. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to have the trustee fix the job. End of story. Done. You don't start talking about the reasons. I mean, if they didn't show, the simplest thing to do is just go there and motion dismiss for them failing to state a claim. They didn't come up and make their claim.
I did that. The judge wouldn't let it dismiss. He's like, he could not do that. It wouldn't be fair. But I just saw him do it to everybody that was a defendant.
Well, I don't know what the rules of that court say about it. What did they say?
It didn't say. It boggled me that he was even allowed to do that.
Right.
It was
I'm just saying, the way you compel the judge is say, well, according to Rule 7 of the rules of the court, fails to show you must. You need to tell him what the law is. The judges aren't there to give you the law.
That's what I thought. You answered my question in the one that I didn't answer, that the rules was what I had and what I needed to stand on.
Okay, yeah, if there's a rule, you can invoke it and use it. But if you fail to do it, the judge is wide open to do whatever you want.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, folks, that's all for the questions tonight. We'll get this video here posted later tonight. I'll post a copy of this on the free members area as well. And we're going to take a segment out of this and also put it on our YouTube channel, which is TJMR's 22. If you ever want to get to our YouTube channel and subscribe, please subscribe and like those videos. It does help the rating of the channel, TJMARRS 22. And you should have the link if you need it for the status and asset protection information. Just go to that the page over there where it talks about the different coaching options and look for the one that says status, and that'll bring you up to here. And then this kind of goes over the status package, and then down here you'll see these graphic shots. This will allow you to watch a video right here somewhere. Yeah, free seminar. Go watch that seminar on the asset protection side of it. So I recommend you go to click on that, give it a try, check it out, read about it. That stuff will change your life, really will, especially going forward. It just helps you arrange your affairs so that you're better protected. You'll wish you had done it sooner, but if you wait till it's too late, you'll wish you had done it before. So it's one of those things an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So is that right? I said it right. Anyway, I'll catch you all next time, and have a great week.